And also, I mean, to make things easier, after 14 years, I've actually written a book on this called The Case Against Fluoride. It will be out in September. 2 other scientists and myself wrote this book to give you the whole information. And at least, you know, and also journalists, you know, I mean, you're rare on this way. Would you call yourself a journalist? Or, no,
yes,
communicator.
Yeah, I'm a physician journalist, yeah. Absolutely.
But we have too many journalists in this country that just take one-liners out there and think they've covered the issue. They'll say things like, oh, the Center of Disease Control says that fluoridation is one of the top 10 public health achievements of the 20th century. And just take it at face value without realizing the Center of Disease Control only has one division looking at this called the Oral Health Division. They're nearly all dentally trained, and their mission is to promote fluoridation. There's no other division.
It's not to protect your health.
No, there's no other division at the CDC which is looking at the health. This is not happening. And so we need journalists to get below the surface of this thing.
And we will do it. There's no question. This is not going to be the last time you see us together. We're going to come up with a whole process. We're going to break these issues down to the very specific points and give you talking points so that you can communicate intelligently to others and help educate them and increase the awareness and the consciousness, because we don't need to convince every person in this country. It's absolutely not the case. We have to reach, as Malcolm Gladwell refers to, as a tipping point. It may be as little as 5% of the population. Once they understand it, once they get behind this, the policies will change. They'll fall like dominoes. And
you know, another issue which we haven't mentioned is thyroid function.
Oh, sure. Thyroid.
Doctors used to, in the 30s, 40s, 50s in Europe, doctors used to use fluoride to lower thyroid function of patients with overactive thyroid glands. And so that's a real concern, especially today we have millions of people with low thyroid function.
Oh, absolutely. And mostly women. This, for some reason, seems to be particularly sensitive to this. And because I've seen tens of thousands of patients, and you know, it's a really common problem. And just if you're a woman watching this and think you have some low thyroid conditions, such as low body temperature, lack of energy, dry skin, tendency towards constipation, not sweating very well, if these are symptoms that you have, then you want to get a test called a TSH, or thyroid stimulating hormone. And if it's above 1.5, then you probably have something that needs to be addressed. And it could be, then it becomes really mandatory to avoid fluoride in the water supply, but also other sources of fluoride. Maybe we can touch on that now, because it's not just in your water, folks, it's in other areas. Obviously fluoridated toothpaste, but the other areas would be the drugs you take. I mean, a lot of the antidepressants and many of the antibiotics, especially the fluoroquinolones, they're loaded with fluoride. And as we believe, some of them are so toxic. I mean, these are really toxic drugs. And then the other source would be
pesticides.
Pesticides, yes, pesticides. So that's the importance of eating organically.
Yeah.
Because you know why they're in pesticides? Because they're toxic. They kill organisms. It's not a mystery. You know, fluoride is a poison.
And one of the reasons it's in toothpaste is acting as a pesticide to kill the bacteria.
I didn't realize it was.
Yeah, it was one of the.
Yeah, I thought the primary reason was to improve the bone density in some way, but I didn't realize that was a mechanism of action.
One is to harden the enamel. That's the theory, is that the fluoride ion replaces the hydroxide ion in the enamel. And the other thing is that at those high levels of 1,000 parts per million toothpaste, it will kill some of the bacteria. There's arguments about whether those bacteria now are sort of developed, and so now they're immune to it.
And resistant.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Another issue, I don't know if you knew this, Joe, but there was a study done in England shows that fluoride accumulates in the human pineal gland, the little gland between the two hemispheres of the brain that makes melatonin. Now, what I find fascinating here is the way that protecting this policy is more important apparently than protecting our health, because even though that study was done in England and was published in 2001, fluoride accumulates in the human pineal gland, and in her animal study she showed that it lowered melatonin in animals, so that was consistent with this. Not one single fluoridating country has attempted to reproduce that study. Why not? It's not a difficult study to analyze the pineal gland of corpses in the few fluoridated not doing it. Why not? And I find that shocking. I mean, I find personally as a scientist, the way science is being abused in promoting fluoridation And, you know, with science, if you don't have truth, it's not science anymore. It's something else. And when you don't have science informing public health policy, that's a huge threat. That's as big a threat to our country, I think, as it is a threat to our health.
It's a very serious issue, and I recently interviewed an MD, PhD, Beatrice Gollum, who's out at the University of California, and really high integrity physician, and really addresses this well in the drug model, because you're right, the scientific method works. No question. The problem is it becomes bastardized in this country because there's massive conflict of interest, which distorts the results, and it's just, you can't trust them anymore. They become untrustworthy, unreliable, and she goes into all the different mechanisms or factors and variables that how it's penetrated into that whole process, from the actual peer-reviewed journals themselves to accepting them and reprints, and and advisory committees. It's just a massive mess. So what I want to say is that we are firm believers in the scientific method. Because
absolutely.
Some people who counter what we're saying is saying that we've abandoned this, and nothing could be further from the truth. It's nonsense. We believe the scientific method works. It just has to be free from conflict of interest.
We need two taps. We need to turn off the tap on fluoridation, and we need to turn on the tap of scientific integrity. Let's have scientific integrity back in our universities, back into our research, and back into informing our regulatory agencies. That's one of my missions. I hope that we can see some progress on that too. But we can begin with stopping fluoridation.
Yes, and the reason, again, we're together is because we share a similar mission. We are both convinced that we, with your help, and only with your help, are going to be able to eliminate, and I'm talking no fluoride in any municipal water supply in the U.S.
Right.
And the strategy we're going to take, because we need to be strategic about this, is to first address Canada, because 60% of Canada is not fluoridated, 40% is, and if we can get the rest of Canada to become non-fluoridated, we believe the U.S. will follow. We're also going to be addressing the two communities, Austin, Texas, and San Diego, California. So if you're in any of those areas, we'll have, certainly let us know, and we'll probably have a link that what would you recommend as a strategy of how they can participate if they're in Canada and they want to help, or if they're in those local communities in California or Texas?
Go to our webpage to begin with, because we keep people posted on that, fluoridealert.org.
And we'll have a link on the page.
Yeah. And they can contact you and contact me, and we'll give them the contact.
And if you're in any of these other communities that you think that you've got some really strong, credible activists who are scientifically based and grounded and really can provide a good support, then let us know, and we can provide resources to help support you in your effort to eliminate fluoride from your local community, because it really needs to be a community by community battle. We're not going to pass a federal law. There's not going to be a presidential mandate or even a statewide elimination. It's really community by community.
Well, it's politics which is interfering with science in this issue, and we need it's a matter of political will, and you cannot change political will if you don't get the people.
Right.
We must begin
with the folks. We've got the numbers.
Yeah.
We've got the numbers. There's only a small number of people who are confused about this, and the more people that we can educate about the truth, the more we can convince them, the more we're going to win this. So it's about scientific truth, and you can challenge anyone who's opposing you to just do the research, go in and evaluate the data. It's there. This is done by this was work commissioned by the United States government.
Yeah.
Objective third party, and this is the conclusion they reach. We're not making this up. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of references in the scientific literature.
You know, Scientific American actually had an article, eight-page article on this in January of 2008, if people go back to that Scientific American. And in that article, they interviewed the chairman of this report, Dr. John Doole, and he said how shocked they were that when they went to the literature,
the
scientific literature, how little real science had been done, that there were so many unresolved questions on health. And he singled out in that interview the thyroid function. It really did concern him, the possibility that fluoride may be interfering with the thyroid.